What up, cuckolds? It's your boy, the Hater, in this mug. And it's time for a new series of the Hater called Hater News, motherfuckers. Hater News. I just thought of this up right now because I was looking up wrestling news to think of something to talk about in this video. But then I realized, why not talk about just the news in general, right? Now, this is not going to be a comprehensive news type of thing, right? I'm not a newsman, but I'm going to talk about a few things here and there in brief hater succession, and with that same hater fun and charisma that you've all grown to know and love. So, when I hit Google and I wrote wrestling news, two things popped out. Well, three things technically, right? Number one, Sasha Banks is in the news again. She wants to join the Wrestling Olympics. Nothing to talk about here other than the fact that if she did this, she would get absolutely bodied. A high school wrestler girl would absolutely body Sasha Banks, who's about 93 pounds, soaking wet. You know what I'm saying? She can't wear those goofy ass wigs and do choreographed moves in real sports. So stick to your lane, Sasha. Now, with that being said, another piece of news about Sasha Banks was apparently she's getting divorced from her husband, who was a guy named Makazi, who apparently was a wrestler. Then he became like a wardrobe guy, like a seamstress, but a male one in WWE, right? I think I've seen him a couple of times on Up, Up, Down, Down, the 2 or 3 episodes that I've seen. So, he seems like a cool guy, but let's be real, right? This was never going to work out. Unfortunately for him, he has been plagued by marrying Sasha Banks. Now, again, there are plenty of women out there who are very, very successful women, far more successful than their husbands. A great example would be Ted Cruz's wife. Apparently, she's the breadwinner. She makes a shitload more money than Ted Cruz because she works in some private industry. She's either a lawyer or a venture capitalist or something, right? So she's raking it in, and Ted Cruz is out there. Ted Cruz is a very intelligent guy, but, he's kind of annoying too, and pretty much his career is him trying to be president and failing. So, and I have no doubt that they're going to stay married, right? Because, they have other things that balance them. However, in the context of Makazi and Sasha Banks, we have to go back to the good old metaphor of sharks and penguins, right? Now, Sasha Banks, I'm sure this guy is a great guy. I'm not trying in any way to besmirch him. But the reality is, he didn't become a wrestler like she did, right? Now she works for a different company. Sometimes that puts a strain on the relationship. And based only on what I've seen from Sasha Banks, right, which is not much, it's just her character, she does seem like a big C, like a C word, right? She just seems like that. So I'm not surprised that this divorce is going to happen. This poor guy is probably sticking through and hoping to make it work. I think she alluded to this once where she was like, I was really rude to my partner and we made it work. And, so she does have the behavior of a C. And as a result, she and her husband are divorcing, right? This goes to show you guys that a lot of times women, not all women of course, they don't want guys that can be perceived as losers. And while this guy is not a loser by any means, he has a steady job, he's a good guy, I'm sure, right? Sasha Banks is pretty much too far ahead of him, right? That, combined with the fact that, she is a C, like I've said, I think leads to this conclusion, It's not a situation where, the wife makes more money than the husband, because that happens a lot, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, by the way, right? Don't be fooled by these, weird-ass, red pill jabrones who say, a woman should never make more money than a man. That's, some antiquated, ridiculous nonsense, right? I would love for my fiance, and, we're legally married, so my wife, I should say, I would love for her to be a multi-millionaire so your boy can just do the Hater channel and never have to work another day. I would love that. I would not feel emasculated at all, right? But I married a good one, Cucks. I don't think this guy married a good one in Sasha Banks, so that's what I gotta say about that. In addition, she said that, there was another article, there's a lot of Sasha Banks news today, right? She wrote some piece where she talks about how people like Jonathan Coachman, who, by the way, is one of the best entrance themes of all time, she talked shit about how he talked shit about her, right? And it's we get it, you know what I mean? They want us to believe she's a star, but she's not, And quite frankly, I think she's going to rue the day that she broke up with this guy, who I also don't know him, obviously, but he seems like a nice guy, and it's hard to find good people out there, men and women. So there you have it, cuckolds. In addition to this, big wrestling news is that Daniel Bryan's contract is apparently expiring or has expired, and basically he's done. He's got his match against Swerve, so they might give him a send-off and they might have him win, or he might lose to Swerve. That's interesting, right? Because it is Daniel Bryan's final match. But he did say that this is going to be the last match as a full-timer. So expect part-time Daniel Bryan. You know what I mean? Now, the question becomes, the observation, I should say, becomes that Daniel Bryan didn't really do anything for AEW, right? Like, he didn't do what he was supposed to do. If he signed like a 3-year contract, he didn't become the star that they needed him to be, right? This is the story with AEW. They got a few people that did become stars, like Jericho and things like that, and they got a few people that didn't. But think about that for a second, motherfucks. Let's compare how great Daniel Bryan is to Chris Jericho, who also works for AEW. Daniel Bryan got started in NXT. I know he was in ROH, but I'm saying he started his real wrestling career in NXT, and he was the rookie for The Miz, right? And his first match, actually, was Jericho, who was the World Heavyweight Champion when Daniel Bryan was an NXT jobber. Jericho beat him in a tightly contested match, but it made him tap out to the walls of Jericho. Now, with all that being said, fast forward like a minute, right? Fast forward like 10, 15 years, whatever the fuck it's been, and Daniel Bryan is ready to hang it up, and Jericho's still there. So that really goes to show how much of a GOAT Chris Jericho is. I think Chris Jericho might be my GOAT, and that's going to be another video on that soon. But anyways, Daniel Bryan is retiring, and this is not good news for AEW, right? Because quite frankly, they're probably going to give him either some retirement ceremony, or they're going to otherwise make him the champion, and they're not in the position to do that, right? After what we saw at Blood and Guts, they should be focusing on pushing the people that are going to be there for a long time. Daniel Bryan, who's going to retire, shouldn't even be in the main event, if you ask me, right? Retire with dignity. Have him have like a meaningful feud against, I don't know, Cesaro or Dean Ambrose or something, right? And he loses to one of those guys or beats one of those guys, and he can win. Maybe have him wrestle Jericho. I don't know, right? Do something, but don't do this. This is not a good idea. So that being said, Daniel Bryan's going to mercifully go away, but I wouldn't be surprised if he lets his contract run, because it's either over, it's going to be over, and then part-time could mean he shows up at WWE and does a WrestleMania match against CM Punk or some bullshit like that. So don't get too excited about him going away permanently, because I do not think that's happening, motherfucks. So there you have it. With all that being said, we find ourselves in a situation where the question once again becomes, who does AEW have, and how can they leverage their stars? It's not looking good with people like Daniel Bryan leaving, and Mercedes Moné just being there, being a mid-card jobber, you know what I mean? Maybe now that she's single, Okada can get his shot, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they can put her in a storyline like that, I don't know. Quite frankly, I've been bored of her since she made her main roster debut. She's done the same thing for years. Like, basically all she does is she just like goes away, then she comes back as a face, and then she takes off one wig and puts on another wig of a different color and turns heel, betraying her, best friend of the moment, And this was what was going to happen in WWE anyways. And now she's just in AEW, and she has no meaningful presence, right? She's just there. She doesn't have any storylines, really. She's just another wrestler, And we've seen recently that AEW can definitely do storylines, but not with her for some reason. So there you have it, cuckolds. I don't know what to tell you, except for the fact that this ain't working out either, right? Yeah, that's been your wrestling news. Maybe I'll do this every week or every couple of days. I don't know. We'll see. Depends on the news, I guess, right? But once in a while, we're going to have hater news. Motherfuckers, hater news up in this bitch. You know what I'm saying? That being said, take care of yourself and your loved ones and go fuck your mothers.